guess the next question I was going to ask, between black men and women, do women date for, let's say, security, or do they date for love?
Interesting question. I'm sure there's a percentage who date for both love and for security. But I tend to believe that the majority of first time women who are dating is for love. But after that, I think the percentages actually go down. And that women, as a rule, tend to date for security. And there are a number of reasons for this, not least of which would include the amount of influence that they get from other women around them, whether it be their moms, their sisters, their aunts, who tell them all the horror stories of their relationships with men, and that basically the only thing a man wants is what's between their legs. And that as a result of the man, quote unquote, wanting what's between their legs, they have an opportunity to gain whatever physical benefits that the man can afford them, whether that be houses, cars, clothes, et cetera, as a trade-off for giving them, quote unquote, what's between their legs. So the idea of marrying a man for possessions is very much deeply rooted in the teaching that they get from their environment. And without sounding harsh, because I don't mean it harshly, but I think that this word actually is appropriate for the type of teaching that they're given based upon the influence and influences around them. Once again, moms, sisters, aunts, girlfriends, etc. In a very real sense, most of the women in this culture, and I'm just speaking in general, but in specific with black women as well, they're actually trained and encouraged, and once again I'm going to use the word, even though I know there are a lot who would disagree with the word and they would have problems with the word, but if they hear the actual definition of it, they'll see that it's actually, the word is accurate. They're actually trained to engage in prostitution. Now, admittedly, this doesn't mean that they're, trained by their moms to put on short red skirts and red pumps and to walk out on a major street in their city and, whistle at cars and tell men to, pay them $50 or $100 to come into a hotel or motel room. That's not what I mean when I use the word prostitution. But the idea and concept of prostitution is that you sell your body for some material gain, and that it's okay to trade your particular body or the use of your body so that you can gain this material advantage, and that it's worth it to trade your body for a short, brief period of time in order to gain this material advantage from men because of their desire to use, share, and take advantage of your physical gift or gifts, whether we're talking what's between their legs, or just having somebody's breast to lean against, or to engage in whatever sexual fantasies they may have, or any other number of things. But that also is included in these relationships of quote unquote getting married to an individual who they're not necessarily in love with, but they feel that they can gain some material advantage. And so they're willing to trade their use of their bodies so that they can have this material advantage. And that's prostitution.
Many other women would disagree with that. Perhaps is not working or may not want to work. And the man is supposed to be the provider. He's supposed to take care of me. This is in the mind of some of the women. Not all, but some of the women.
Well, yeah, like we said earlier, the idea of the princess in the tower, waiting to be rescued by this, the knight in shining armor, who will rescue her from this dreary tower and take her in his arms on his horse to his castle. And she now will have reign over his materials. And they will live happily ever after. Well, though it's a wonderful fairy tale, certainly I can't imagine anyone not wanting to partake in such a wonderful thing. The reality is, for the vast majority of women, this just simply isn't true. And for those few women for whom they've been fortunate enough to find someone who fits that role for them, they tend to find out that for a deeper, more meaningful relationship, that particular concept and idea of the white knight on the horse,
or a black knight,
in this instance, rescuing them and them living happily ever after, is a bit superficial at best, and is extremely unrealistic and foolhardy at worst.
the superficialness that you mentioned, would you say that has been interwoven in our culture, especially black culture?
But I'll say this, that I've learned about human nature, and that is in every generation there are those who strive to do what's good for people in general, and there are those who strive to do what's not good for people in general, and then there are people who do a little bit of both. They do a little good, a little bad. In every generation. So certainly I don't think ours is any different. And I think that the particular culture that we're involved in, certainly materialism is emphasized because, quite frankly, it helps trade, make money. I mean, if people aren't trading goods and services, the economy isn't stimulated. And so the powers that be, as it were, ensure that people live dissatisfied. Hence the reason for so many commercials for things that people in deeper thought really don't need, but because it's placed in front of them often enough, they get this idea that they have to have it, that they need there. So I think that the materialism is definitely is built into the culture, and it affects black women just as much as it affects any other any other person in this kind of culture.